We've got a long one today, party people. I've got notes. This is going to be an actual longer video today because we're going to be talking about some of the actual business things that are happening. And while I've talked about the manifesto before, about creating without asking for permission and doing those kind of things, at some point the rubber has to hit the road, and it isn't a matter of concepts, ideas, and wishes. At some point, you've got to make the thing. And we're getting to a point now where we're finally getting a chance to make the thing. And that's kind of exciting. So many of you remember that last week, my buddy Nate Richard was here. Nate and I do a podcast, and you can find that in the links down below. And we had a chance to join the folks over at the Get Down for a Pride event where they did the Spellman Spectacular, and we got to meet and greet with fans and have just a great time. There'll be things on the Patreon about that later. And if you follow the newsletter, you'll get a snippet of that in the newsletter as well. But one of the things that happened was I had a chance to introduce Nate to a lot of the filmmaking community that Renee and I have met up here in Portland. Before I go any further, I think it's really important to make sure to identify and straight out say, Renee and I know that we are not doing anything new or extraordinarily novel or even like the first filmmakers in Portland. We are far from. The activities that we are taking are our participation in helping to grow the kind of filming infrastructure and community that we want to be a part of here in Portland. And it's a great community with a lot of talent that we're very excited to be a part of. And so I wanted to introduce my friend Nate to this great new community that we are also adding ourselves to. And we got together with some of those folks, and we have big conversations about what's happening in the industry. Now, there are going to be lots of channels that will talk about the different things that are going on business-wise. But a lot of what you're going to hear about is the bigger studio stuff, the big money stuff, things that are millions of dollars per project. And that's great and all. I mean, that's going to be really important. That is an active economy of billions and billions of dollars that is actively going through a massive, massive change. And we're seeing these changes happen really quickly, which is normally very, very unusual. Studios are big corporations. They're usually pieces of a multinational global conglomerate. So making one change in one piece is normally a very slow turn for the ship. And we are seeing what is considered nimble for these large companies to be able to do right now, to be able to make changes to keep themselves relevant and keep the business of filmmaking actually moving forward and continuing it all. That is important. That is important to the business of film and the business of television and the business of entertainment in general. I may have some very persnickety and crotchety feelings or opinions about how some of this is working. But in the end, I'm also not working in the studio system, not for a very long time. And I don't miss it because it can be extraordinarily cutthroat. And when I was my most successful, I was a bad person. And I don't mind saying that. I think there are plenty of people who you can talk to in the past who will tell you, yeah, Curtis was his worst self when he was making the most money. I like the version of me that I am and I'm becoming now, but I still want to tell stories. And I don't know that the money was a big part of that, but I do think that some of the cutthroat, bloodthirsty requirement that is needed to be able to make some projects that large work definitely contributed to bad behavior that I don't want to see continue in this industry. Filmmaking and television and everything that is a media art is collaboration and requires community. And I think some of the best work that's happening right now is being built out of community. That's a lot of flowery words. Again, we need to get to where rubber hits the road. And so the two biggest things that somebody in my position needs to worry about is discovery and distribution. Both of these things have become extraordinarily gatekept. Actually, distribution has always been very, very, very tightly held. That was the one mega piece of leverage that you always had to ask someone else to have. Or if you had the financing to be able to do it, you'd create your own out of frustration or necessity. The interesting thing about discovery right now is that we're coming to the tail end of when organic possible discovery is ending. And a lot of that is because of the changes to social media, specifically their algorithms and the amount of slop, whether AI or just crap generated by humans, is contaminating the systems that we used to be able to use to organically find our audiences. YouTube does not work the way that it used to. No meta platform is made to help you do anything anymore except make them money. And a lot of I know TikTok is still a predominant platform for people to try and use, but American TikTok is now a completely different entity from TikTok worldwide. And sometimes the twain don't meet. And that is really unusual. They also have their algorithm is persnickety. Is probably the most polite way to say that. So the two things that myself and other filmmakers like myself have been dealing with has been, how do we achieve discovery and distribution? Discovery is probably the most important. Discovery is how people find you. Discovery is how you build a fan base and how you build an audience base. Because the pixie dust and unicorns of it all is, I want you to like what I make. And I want you to watch it and be like, yeah, this is good. And I want all my friends to see it too. But the cynical side of that is, I also need you to like it so much that you think it's worth something. And then that value is translated to dollars, whether that be as a subscriber to the Patreon, by the way, link to that below, or purchasing of merch or physical product of whatever that thing is. The art of commerce is required for the commerce of art. And so the more people who can see it, the more people who can find it, the more likely it is we will find the audience who is willing to and has the ability to provide financial support through the purchasing of those products and find value in the community of other people that are part of that. And that's a big reason why we started the Patreon again. But it's very difficult to be able to get out because everybody wants a piece. And that's not necessarily bad. I mean, late stage capitalism is what it is. I don't like it because I'm at a disadvantage. I am not financed well enough to be able to break through the wall that is pay to play. And this is something that we used to see a lot in the music scene in Los Angeles, which is why there was an old saying, if you want to get famous in Los Angeles, go get famous somewhere else first. And the same thing has become true in digital and on social and on the internet, where the idea of organic growth, which I prided myself on being able to achieve back when social media was new and I was first doing my consulting and teaching people how to market themselves, isn't really possible anymore. Now it has to be a collaboration between you and the platform wanting you to succeed, because whatever piece of content has been created, they deem as something that might be able to go viral, and then they will push it out to all of their quadrants to be able to try and get those views up to cause conversation, outrage, and in the end, eyeballs for media, for ad dollars, which is always what it comes down to. So what this all means is that a lot of the studios and a lot of people are still hanging on to old model thinking about how to make money in this business. That is going away. All of those ideas are going to stop working, at least in the rate that it did before. And we are a long, long way from the heyday of the 90s, when all media, music, television, film, when everything was making money hand over fist. And a person like me, who was a professional guest star, maybe had to work 4 times a year to be able to do very well for themselves. That just is not true anymore. I could be working every week on something and might be making less than I do now as a partner at the game store. So here are some people that are doing it right. My friend Joseph Erickson, who is a documentary filmmaker for Class Wars. We've talked about him a lot. I'm going to include the link down below. He and Alicia J. Rose, who is the sign director for Rainbow Bridge. Her project right now is a documentary called Menopunks, which is the combination of punk rock and the discussion of menopause in women. It's phenomenal. She's created a movement. And that right there is kind of the bleeding edge of what is making discovery and distribution right now. Both Joseph and Alicia were not satisfied with just making one movie. The movies already look great. From what I have been allowed to see of them, it's very, very satisfying. They're very good. They're very good. And when they do come out, I hope you will watch them a lot. And every time you see Joseph and Alicia, you let them know that Curtis sent me here. Woo! I want that referral. But the key thing about what they're doing is they are creating movements behind the subjects of their films. So that means going to conferences. That means meeting with unions and medical groups and support groups and creating podcasts. The Menopunks podcast is just fantastic. And if you like punk music and Riot Girls and you have any interest in women's health, which you probably should, because more than 50% of the population is women, and it's good to know that things are finally being studied for them specifically to their health. It's just extraordinarily fascinating, very, very interesting, and overwhelmingly enlightening. So it's worth checking out. But these movements are helping to build the discovery that is creating the audience that will eventually attract distribution, even if the gates are still up and they have to get permission to get that distribution. Now, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is that a lot of this isn't necessarily a new idea. Back in the olden days, the golden age of Hollywood, they had things called road shows where people would grab their films and they would just move them around the country, and they'd put them up in theaters, and there'd be a big to-do about it. You'd have a little fair in the town square, and you'd be like, we're going to go watch Gone with the Wind, and then you'd throw Gone with the Wind in the theater for a week, and then at the end of the week it'd be like, thanks for watching Gone with the Wind, and you go on to the next town. And that is one of the ambitious ways both Joseph and Alicia are looking at moving this movie around, which is great. The movement will provide the audience for that. It will generate the momentum that can carry those movies through. So when I look at something like that, that solution works very well for documentary film, because those are movements that require activism and require enthusiasm from an audience, because it's also promoting a social change that is necessary. The stuff I want to make is narrative-based. I just have some fun stories I want to tell. And that is a little bit tougher to generate a grassroots upswell of, yeah, we need to do this, when in the end, I have just a vigilante who's, carrying out executions on people who commit domestic violence. So that's become the real question. This is a catch-22. It takes a certain amount of capital to be able to create content. In order to do the kind of things, to get to the discovery that Joseph and Alicia are able to get with their projects, I need to have track record. I need to have a series of projects that people can look at and say, oh, he's doing good things. Let's see where this goes. And unfortunately, that's expensive. Even if I do them on the cheap, it's expensive, because nothing is free. Under 5, which is 100% considered a no budget project, under $3,000. We still spent nearly $3,000. Some of that is still on credit, like it has yet to be paid for. And I'm proud of Under 5. I love it. I think we did a great job, especially considering how fast we got it together and how quickly we had to turn it around. But it wasn't free, and I can't just bankroll a series of projects to make track record, especially because at this low a budget, there can be no mistakes. There can be no failures. Everything's gotta hit. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do in the best case circumstance. That's hard to do with $10 billion. You're not going to hit every time. And so it's this catch-22 of, how do I create track record without having the backing or audience willing to forgive as we build track record? And that's a tough hill. That's a tough hill to get over. So what I'm working on right now is I'm trying to build a model for non-permission filmmaking that works from zero. It's reliant on community, and I don't want people working for free. I think that talents and collaboration warrant payment. These are valuable skills. They take years to hone and train. And at the speed with which we will have to complete these projects, you can't have somebody new just coming in to make their bones. That is not going to work. If I had 5 years to complete a 15-minute short, sure. Then we could bring on all of the folks that we want, and we could train them on the job, and we could get it done over time. But we don't have that kind of time. We don't. We have tight production schedules, even if we were fully funded. And I'm still trying to figure those things out. So the model that I'm envisioning will eventually be a template for $0 filmmaking. And we call it $0, but it's not really $0. I should probably call it something else, because it does cost money. Ugh. Why do I gotta figure things out while you guys are actually watching me think it out? Anyway, point is, we're trying to build a model. If Rainbow Bridge works the way that I hope it does through its production life, then I will have that template to apply. And I already have a couple new projects, well, not new, I have a couple other projects that I'm ready to start working on once we know Rainbow Bridge works. There are a couple hurdles that are going to be tough to cross. That's not for this, though. That is the background math and mapping and planning and spreadsheets. But that's the goal. If we can create this template, then I'll be able to apply this template to every other project that we do. And if it works, then I've built a business model. And the phone's ringing. But if it works, then I've got a business model that will be able to transfer from project to project to project. And, sure, ideally, maybe those production budgets grow, but I'm not going to concern myself with that now. Right now, I am focused on what we have currently, and that's what we're going to work from. This might be boring. I don't know. I hope you find it interesting. I hope that, especially if you're here on the Patreon, you're excited to see a little bit behind the curtain. If you're not, though, tell me in the comments. If you are, tell me in the comments. Engage, like, it helps. And that's all for this week. Also, get tickets for Chorus Line. The tickets are going fast. See you next week.